And here we are. We are live at the WTGS Fall Symposium 2023, where we're streaming. PBE Podcast got the honor to stream this event live. All the technical talks, the panel discussion coming out later today at 2 o'clock with Dave Cannon, Mike Party, Lori Blanc's husband, the mayor of Midland's husband's going to be there, Callum from Texas Tech University. That panel discussion is going to be fascinating. But you know, when you start putting in time at these events, which my first one was in 2013, you start to really identify the people and the characters, the ones that are really here, they're really in it, they have these relationships, right? And I heard this recently, the one with the most relationships is usually the most successful.
Relationships are a big part of this business.
So
people do business with people.
That's right. And people hang out with people who are in industry. Doctors hang with doctors, geos hang with geos. So I saw Miss Sue, I'm like, oh man, what a beam of light, a firecracker when she needs to be. Like, who is Miss Sue? Where does this all come from? Tell your story, please.
So I got into this oil business a little late because I was going to be a doctor.
Whoa, doctor of what?
I was going to pre-med, and when they saw my first year's grades, they said, you need to find something else.
Biology's not working out.
So the chemistry was actually something I made decent grades in.
Nice.
How I didn't end up becoming a geochemist, I don't know, but it started out with the influence of a geologist.
Really?
So I was on my way to be a chemical engineer, and I got a summer job with a company called Mitchell Energy.
Mitchell?
George Mitchell's company, as in the man that was the geologist and led that whole idea of tight rock
in the Barnett
and wanted to know more about fracking. So anyway, my summer job was actually a water flood.
What?
But the coolest thing was the geologist that said, okay, this is how we're going to measure the water cut. We drink these Cokes, and then we go out to this well, and then we turn it on, and then we let it settle.
Yeah.
And then
Make sure to take the wrapper
that's
off.
about 60% water cut. That one's about 30. So that was my summer job, to drink the Coke and go and take the measurements out of the wells, and then come back and make a map. Because we needed to know the map, and then that kind of got me that whole idea about how do you water flood, what's the front looking like, how are we moving through the reservoir. And that got me to go back to university in the fall and change to petroleum engineering.
Whoa. So you went
So it was
chemical.
the influence of a geologist. Well, yeah, I actually looked at, geology, but I was almost going to have to start over. Since I had already started in the engineering world, it was like, okay, well, you've got this, and this that,
Right.
Daddy wasn't going to keep paying for college forever.
You were figuring that out.
Yeah. So then the next summer I came back again and worked at Mitchell, and it was so exciting. I got there the very first day. And so that meant that I had actually made the cut, and I was in the phone book. Their little old-fashioned phone book that
you were in the Rolodex. You made the Rolodex.
I made the Rolodex that year. So this man calls me up, and he says, Sue Pritchett? Your last name?
Miss Sue.
Well, Miss Sue Pritchett? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, this is Earl Pritchett. I'm coming down to meet you. Yes, sir.
Whoa.
So we got to talking, and he was their regulatory man at Mitchell Energy. Happened to know a chief engineer that worked at the Railroad Commission. My next job that fall was to go to work at the Railroad Commission.
No way.
Very unusual for a mediocre student in a bachelor's program to get a job at the commission. Most of them were PhD candidates, some of them postdocs, masters.
What was it? Your
this
intensity?
Was the new field, basically my personality. I love the oil and gas. I love learning. I love being curious.
Yeah.
Yes, so I just talked my way into getting that job too.
You're just a loose electron out there.
Exactly. So that's how this came about. I got that job, finished, didn't graduate cum laude, graduated thank you laude, and thanks to the Railroad Commission.
So good.
So then I ended up with a real job.
Okay.
At an oil and gas company, searching for onshore, offshore, and I got to work with guys that eventually became Denbury. because I got to work with guys that eventually became Cross Timbers, also known as XTO.
Wow.
And we did projects at this little oil company in Dallas where we were learning how to frack. We did multiple stages. We tagged them with radioactive isotopes. We ran logs again to go see where they had fracked, then run a production log, try to find out which ones are producing more. Why is this zone producing more than that zone?
Let's go.
So it got back to the geologists.
Yeah.
We had to actually go to a different building to talk to the geologists.
You walk in, there's a bunch of beer cans on the floor. You're like, what's going on
You have
here?
no idea the influence that Captain Beer had on my life. So
let's rock it back to George Mitchell days. You got to meet that guy? What's
I got
he
to
like?
meet that guy and some of his family. He was amazing.
Really?
Yes,
What's it about him?
People were people. I mean, he had a huge family, and he really did. I mean, what the Mitchells did for Galveston, what the Mitchells have done for the Woodlands, and I know when they first built his campus, the idea was there were no buildings taller than the trees. And ExxonMobil, when they rebuilt their campus out there, they complied with what is no longer the rules, but they kept their buildings underneath the tree level.
Wow.
And that was that whole idea, that he wanted the work industry to fit into the woodlands and stay in
What a
amongst the
visionary,
trees.
huh?
Yep. So he was a pretty, I mean, we had picnics with everybody, different departments, out on the in the area that they had picnics, and they were always doing things for the community. So yeah, the George Mitchell family and Mrs. Mitchell as well, the Moody Gardens and all of that. So it's amazing. Well, that's like Mrs. Faskin.
Mrs.
They've done some amazing things too, and that's what I'm gonna.
Wow.
That's the company that we've been doing a lot of work for, is Faskin Ranch. So
right, isn't that's
the talk is at 1:00 today.
1:00, Paratosh .0 goes on?
That's right.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, what's he talking about?
So he is talking about a reservoir characterization of multi-bench stratigraphic intervals. And it's the insight to the high-density Fairfield data, and tying it to the reservoir and reservoir characterization. So yeah, that's been my history in the oil and gas industry,
so
from trying to understand the geology of the different reservoirs, and then how do you incorporate and integrate the engineering side of it, and how do you make a strategy to take it to, my first job at Ikon was to put together a Gulf of Mexico pressure regional study.
No way.
Which to this day, even though a lot of the wells have been drilled since then, we've tested it with new wells. And the overall, because of that integrated workflow and the deliberate integration of all the data that you can find, it helps understand the geology, the pressure. I think there's one little area around Green Knoll, which I think is like an escape hatch, that we didn't get the wells exactly right.
But for the most part,
the entire 6, protraction areas.
How big of an area is that? Like miles and miles?
Oh, miles and miles, yeah. We didn't quite go as far north in Mississippi Canyon, but we have 6 of those Gulf of Mexico protractions. So yeah.
How did you get into Ikon? How does that go?
Poor pressure.
Poor pressure. So just
before Mr. Bridges' company was bought by Halliburton, I worked there and hung out with all these geologists that explained to me the mechanisms of pore pressure. Again, it gets back to geology.
Yeah.
So that, by not being a geologist, I just have to keep hanging out with everybody that's a geologist. Even married one.
What? No way. You're the ultimate integrator. You're the ultimate engineer integrating into geology world.
Yes, and geophysicists. Talk about some of the gearheads. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So you went from Halliburton to Ikon?
No, I got out of it before Halliburton got them.
Okay.
It was Drillworks.
Drillworks, huh?
Yeah, so that's how Ikon Science now incorporates. We're actually about to launch a real-time pore pressure part. Well, actually, we have well surveillance now, and it's going to also become a part of Rock Dock, because we have Rock Dock, which only ROK for Kemper,
Okay.
And the rock duck has been around almost 23 years.
Wow.
You know, we're going to have a big party. I know Ikon is famous for some of their big parties.
Oh, yeah.
But Ikon Science is going to have a big party on our 25th anniversary. So you got to be a user to be at the party.
Ah, I like that. I like that. So what does Ikon do exactly? What is the business model? Ikon Science.
Ikon Science is a software service company that allows the integration of all the data from core, petrophysics, geologic mapping, seismic, to better understand reservoir characterization and optimize production ultimately.
Bottom line.
Bottom line.
Now, what's this monitoring stuff you're talking about, though? You guys actually have equipment like that does the monitoring?
No.
Okay.
We will get either the WTGS read or
Your software can take it in.
Yes. We are very good at ingesting a lot of data. Different kinds of data, even awkward, weird, some of those laboratory results of core data. We'll be at the core workshop tomorrow afternoon. Come talk to me a little bit more about that.
Do you take in drilling data?
We take in drilling data.
Whoa, as they're drilling the well,
as they're drilling,
weight on bit, and all of a sudden you're seeing gas kicks and
yes.
How
so we can do the
that?
pre-drill prediction as well as monitor it while it's being drilled.
How about that? So if you want the a la carte, like I want everything that Ikon Science does, how do you approach that? I know everyone's going to have a slightly different need and all that, but like, does someone have everything you do and like your customer service like are always talking to them and?
Yes, I mean we are fortunate to have been adopted early into the majors. We do a lot of the services for the independents. And even some of the independents that have decided they really do want to have somebody that runs the software and integrate everything. We actually have an award-winning support system for our software, and that's actually where Perry started, and we are continuing that. That we get rated all the time as being the best responders to helping people with our software, RockDoc.
It's a big deal.
And we're building that other side of the business where we're integrating the knowledge management of a lot of those kind of, like I said, unique, awkward data from core, and we're even building our own generated AI.
Wow.
Next year I'll tell you more about that.
Right on. I'll be here.
Yeah. And I'll be here too.
Now, if you could reflect right back on like that first job and coming out of school, and you're unique, and you have unique experiences. If you could reflect back on that and then tell someone today that might be in your situation, what is it about your personality that can be like learnable or understandable? Like some people just uniquely have charisma, right? But some people don't. Like,
well,
what is it?
Even if you don't have that, stay curious. Because curiosity, the desire to learn and want to know more. I'm sure I annoyed my mother my whole life. Why? Why? All those little kids that go, why?
Yeah.
Why? That's what they want to know. Why?
It's because I said.
Exactly. I got that too. And but it's the design, and that's just it. I think the oil and gas industry shows every time somebody says we've hit the creaming, we're done with oil and gas.
Yeah.
No, we figure out a new technology. I mean, look at what the Permian is. My drilling professor said, "Where do you find oil? Where do you find oil?" So what have we done? We drilled horizontal now in the Permian, and we have a whole new boom again.
Yeah.
So the technology, and that's kind of that whole secondary enhanced oil recovery. If we can figure out, think about it, 1% increase in billions of barrels that have been produced from the Permian. That's another whole creaming curve, buster.
Yeah.
So the whole we don't want to get into politics here, but we've had 7 presidents that wanted to be energy independent.
Yeah.
Well, with the shale play, we were.
Wow.
So think about it. That was the other thing that busted one of those creaming curves. Nobody anticipated what we were going to be able to do in the shales. Whoever would have said this pain thing that we had to drill through, or the source rock, was going to be the reservoir.
Yeah. And did you see that talk with advanced hydrocarbon stratigraphy? The guy, it was like this third talk today. He was talking about one horizon in the Wolfcamp B and it has this density difference in the horizon. You see heavy hydrocarbons in the bottom, lighter hydrocarbons in the top. And I imagine that's so important to seismic modeling and what P-Dog's talking about.
Well, and density is one of those things too. I forgot about another job that I had that was weird science. I do love companies that have science either in their name, in their business. Three-dimensional full tensor gravity gradiometry still rolls right off my tongue. It was to look for that density difference before we had reverse time migration.
Huh.
So, and looking for a density difference that is that sensitive. I mean, I talked to Calvin yesterday, and it's like the density tool, right, we have still is very sensitive.
Yeah.
So looking for that unique density difference, we will figure out a way between the medical industry that we share information with and our industry and space, which are the things that I tell the kids at the science fair all the time, find something in there that makes you interested. And of course, programming now, I mean, we were joking the other day about the little programmable calculators that we used to have in school. Programming now is the thing. Everybody needs to learn a little programming.
So what's our time frame, Celeste? When does the camera need to be back? We have like 5-10 minutes. Where are we at? I think it's 10:40. It's 10:34 already.
That was quick. That was quick.
Fast.
See, we have to do it again. Here he comes.
I need more time.
Okay.
I need more time. Well, this event's talking about the next 100 years, right? That's what the panel discussion's all about. The next 100 years, what's it going to be like? You have all these fantasies. We have some fundamentals that we can still really work on that can help the next 100 years be more successful. What is it to you that can help get younger generation and that next wave of like true oil and energy finders? Like, are we missing the mark somewhere? What's going on?
The oil and gas industry has always needed a better PR firm, right? Because usually the only time we make the news is when something bad happens.
That's right.
And in reality, I just learned Scott Tinker is retiring.
Yeah.
Who is going to be talk about the spokesman for the energy poverty parts of the world?
Right.
That's the thing, and hydrocarbon is that thing that people will continue to use. I mean, I do think there's 100 years. I think there's 300 years more of hydrocarbon. We've already shown that we can be more efficient with it.
That's right.
I mean, I think about my granddad's truck. I think it got about 12 miles a gallon. He used to joke about flushing it, like flushing a toilet when he would drive it. And now we're up to cars that are either hybrids that can go 50 some miles an hour. Gallon. So I think that we will eventually see, and bless the person that can come up with a new engine and a new battery. But, Professor Goodenough spent his entire 96 years, I think, trying to figure out a new battery from the lithium to where we've got now. And that's the other thing is the interesting thing to me about the whole electricity world. It still right now is powered predominantly by hydrocarbon. And that is where I think a lot of people don't quite understand.
Right. It's being subsidized by reliable energy
right now. And it will continue to be. So anyway, that's another thing is when you land in Midland now, you don't just see the pads from drilling pads.
Yeah.
You now see this big swath of windmills. Yeah. So anyway, question some of that too. But I did drive past Sweet Stillwater, and they use one of those big blades as a welcome to Stillwater. It's cool. Well, anyway, I love the industry. I love Texas. And
I love you, Miss Sue.
I love you too, Troy.
Everyone's going to go back into the technical conference now. Can I get a 3? This is highly anticipated 3, 2, 1. We've been talking about this for a long time. Can I get a 3, 2, 1? Let's go.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Let's go! Enjoy the technical talks. Thank you, Miss Sue.
And see Perry at 1 o'clock.
Yes, Perry's talk at 1 p.m. Thank you, Ikon Science.
Come get a goodie bag.
I'm taking the gum. You can't have the gum.
You can have the